Incremental greetings. You may be very familiar with the expression of and the concept of speed repetition, but did you know when it was invented? For instance, it was invented, it was discovered, by who, how? So let me tell you that the birth of speed repetition it's longer than my life, so I was not even born yet. One researcher from Poland called Piotr Wozniak. So back in June 2018, just 3 years ago, that's kind of recent, Piotr Wozniak, a Polish researcher, published this article about the true history of speed repetition. Why true history? That's because there is some misleading information about Ebbinghaus and so on, but the point of this video is about the date, where you draw the line to state, oh, here is when speed repetition was born. So for a very long time, Piotr Wozniak set the date of birth at August, but on the article about the true history of speed repetition, based on his notes, he realized that was not it. In fact, the date was July 21st of the same year, about a month before that, which it happens to be today. Today it's July 21st, but 2021, so it happens to be the same day as today. Today is July 21st of 2021, so exactly 36 years old. But how did that happen? So back in the day, in the 80s, Piotr Wozniak, he was a college student, and he was studying biology in college, but he realized, not before, but even before that studying at the school and college was not that efficient. So he wanted to increase his speed because he was forgetting and kept forgetting. And more learning lead to more forgetting. So he realized something, that if I review twice, I see the same thing twice, it will be easier to remember or harder to forget. But if I see it 3 times or 4 times, it will be increasingly easier. So that's kind of obvious, but that's one observation. And he realized, okay, I guess that will be more students will be on the same page, but what if I can calculate what the optimal interval is? So when do I have to watch to review the same material for the second time, a third time, so I can avoid forgetting? And to answer that question, he carried on a simple experiment for himself, not for being published, because his goal was not about making an algorithm or a computer program, but just to speed up his learning, becoming more efficient. So long story short, he had about 79 pages of questions about biology and Polish. And here I think he only chose the first 5 and so on, and he methodically chose the same intervals. 2 days, then 4 days and so on. I will skip the specifics, but the point is that at some point between that, because the original timing of the experiment was on February of 1985 to August 24th. Does it sound familiar? Yep. The end of the experiment was set at the birth of speed repetition. But before that, on July 21st, he realized, okay, I'm seeing a pattern here already. I can state that that's it. So thanks to Wozniak that he kept all the documentation of the 80s, back in 2018, 3 years ago, he could prove that based on his notes, on July 31st of 1985, he discovered speed repetition. So that's the summary, on chronological order. So July 31st of 1985 is when speed repetition was born. Then next month, August 25th, is when the first algorithm was born. So that's actually the next day when the experiment ended. So that was the algorithm of SuperMemo on paper. Yet on paper, because the computer program was not born until 2 years later, December 13 of 1987. Which, by the way, I was born 2 weeks before that. Just a note.